I am not a diehard Trump fan, and I am not a diehard Kamala fan. So, yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm not taking sides here. I think they're both pretty stupid.
To America's deficit. My
It's
opponent
just Donald Trump is funny.
has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax
So I lean a
on
little bit
everyday
over
goods
there.
that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs
Actually, yeah.
on other countries. Other
Yeah,
countries are
I'm
going to.
gonna-
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
Okay, so that right there is completely wrong. Tariffs are not countries paying us money. It's basically on our own people. That's what a tariff is. And so when he said, "Oh, I'm not taxing the people, I'm not creating," or whatever he said, something about taxing us, whatever. And then he goes off and says that tariffs are gonna make countries give us money. That's not at all how a tariff works. A tariff is like, see, one of his tariffs right now is not right now, but one of his tariffs he wants to do like right out the gate is a 100% tariff on Chinese vehicles coming to America. And that is like a 100% tariff. That means any car coming from China to America is now going to cost double. It's literally like if the car was 50 grand, it's going to be 100. So that's what a tariff is. It's a way of making our people not buy foreign products because the price of them are raised by a certain percentage. And Trump is going for the top percentage of 100%, which is fucking stupid. But basically, China, the number one the number one manufacturer of vehicle parts for America, are now going to have a 100% tariff on all vehicle related things coming to America. So cars are going to cost way more than they ever did before. That's Donald Trump's plan. Truly, truly genius and a great way of making this economy better for poor people.
And the tariff will
He's just going to fuck over everybody.
be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. They would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look,
I mean, it's interesting that Kamala Harris doesn't take that and just like throw that right in his face when it's her turn to talk, but she doesn't do that because I watched the first 10 minutes. I know.
had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous.
It's just so interesting that he's like, "Oh, we have terrible inflation, terrible inflation, terrible inflation." Dude, you're going to make it worse. You are going to make it worse. Like, just wait. I just can't. Anyone who thinks I'm wrong right now, just wait. It's going to get worse. The economy is going to get so much worse for poor people.
Because many things are...
You know what 100% tariff does for the rich people? It gives them money. It makes rich people who own businesses and manufacturing warehouses or whatever ability to, get more labor in their facilities so that only Americans can buy American products. He's basically keeping the money in America, but that only benefits the people who own the companies. That doesn't benefit the poor people who have to pay double if they want a better product from somewhere else.
50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental...
I just gotta make sure I'm recording still. I'm not reacting to this twice. Okay.
institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again, and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald
Technically, she's probably right, but hear me out. It's because of COVID. So people were losing jobs, landlords were losing, tons of money. Like, a lot of money was being lost, and a lot of people lost their jobs, So, sure, unemployment must have skyrocketed during COVID when it first started, which was when Trump was leaving office. So, technically, she's right, but she's, there's clearly some facts being left out here.
Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a...
Dude, I should be mediating this fucking conversation dude, I would call both of these fuckers out. It's so stupid that they could just lie for 2 minutes, and then rarely does the mediator say something.
century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us, and I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute to respond.
Number one,
It's just like this whole fucking debate is just straight up like, and if I am elected president, I will put chocolate in the water fountains and cameras in the girls' locker room. Go. It's like this is this whole debate. Just, I'll do this if I get elected. I'll do this if I get elected. You know how many times I've heard that and nothing happens when they say it will happen? It's crazy. They're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to fix it. And then they get elected 4 years later. Guys, if you re-elect me, I promise this time I will fix it. It's like, what are you talking about? You didn't fix it in 4 years. You're not going to fix it in the next 4. And the person running against you that'll say they'll fix it is lying too. It's just a fucking... It's ridiculous. Also, he's about to talk about Project 2025, so.
I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there.
That's just not true. I think someone in Donald Trump's cabinet, somebody who's like really close to him that he hired, it was some guy that was like serving him coffee, and he's just a job, and the guy's like, oh, yeah. And then he's like one of the main people who worked on the Project 2025 list. Someone who's pretty closely underneath Donald Trump, who's one of his ass kissers. So Project 2025 may not be exactly what Trump is saying he wants to do, but it is definitely at least 50% of that list is things he wants to get to. So Project 2025 is real, and it is a part of Donald Trump, whether he likes it or not. He's just denying it so he can get votes.
There. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no
People that he hired.
difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did.
Cutting taxes that's just not true. He's going to raise tariffs, which is going to cost a fuck ton more on people and their taxes when they purchase items from
Before we had the greatest economy. We got
like
hit
China, the #1 manufacturer.
with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything.
That's just not true. The pandemic fucked up the economy. And then he handed over that fucked up economy. And then the next 4 years, Kamala and Biden were trying to fix it.
Like it. We made
They didn't do a very good job.
ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would...
The Wharton School. Are we talking about fucking college universities putting out studies as grade? Like, I don't understand what this is. Every time they're like, oh, a study from Harvard, it's like, was that made by students or was that made by professors? You know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about? Are we... where are you getting this information from? Children?
actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a sound bite to hear that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan.
See? Who's lying here? One of them just said that, oh, the Hogwarts School of Finance says that my plan is perfect. And then Donald Trump goes, actually, I went there. Hogwarts School of Finance said that my plan is perfect. They're both saying contradicting things. Why doesn't the mediator clarify?
That's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs.
How am I supposed to know? How is the voter supposed to know which one of these fuckers are lying other than basing it off of the fact that Donald Trump is funny and they like him more? Both, like, it's just a fucking who likes who competition.
And create a lot of good, solid money for our country.
If both of them are lying, then it'll just come down to personality. It's a personality contest. I don't...
And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences.
This country is so fucked, bro. When I was a kid and I'm like looking at presidents, I'm like, wow, dude, that's the best of us. Now when I'm like older and I see a president, I'm like, that guy's a fucking moron.
Like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice
I should be a politician, dude. These guys get so much money for absolutely nothing.
President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to happen, who's going to have higher prices is China.
Again. A tariff is only going to fuck over us. Sure, it might affect China a little bit. Like, a tariff is basically, it's like, there's no real way to describe it. Basically, like, a tariff will 60% fuck us up and 40% fuck up the person we're using the tariff on. A tariff only affects our country the most. There's no way we're making money off of a tariff. And if we are, it's only going to rich people who own companies. It's not, you know what I mean? And the trickle-down effect, like, oh, if the company makes more money, the employees make more money. That's just completely not true at all.
China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of...
I mean, when you really think about it, dude, everything we have comes from China. China has cheap labor. That's you know, that's one of the most valuable things in the world is cheap labor. When you think about it, dude. If we just start putting children in factories, this country would make so much money.
Of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else.
That's so true,
the
dude.
people of our country are absolutely dying with...
I went to the store back in like 2022, I think, 2021. It was during like the, I don't know, the back end of COVID, and cereal was $11. Cinnamon Toast Crunch, regular size box, was $11, dude. That's fucking insane.
What they've done, they've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought
What? Wait, what did she just say? Hang on a second.
Force so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did.
President, it sounds like she's saying President Xi, but she's talking about President Xi or whatever the fuck, which I think is the president of China. I don't know.
During COVID, look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump.
Okay, so she's saying that he thanked the Chinese president, even though he didn't give us the, he wasn't completely honest COVID outbreak. Which, I mean, if anyone was defending China the longest, it was the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party. So I don't know why she's claiming. What the fuck is this argument?
Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything.
That's true. Taiwan makes all the chips. America doesn't really make chips. That's Taiwan. So, I don't... But, I mean, it doesn't make sense for Taiwan to do deals with China unless America signed off on it.
That she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country...
What the fuck is a Marxist? I don't even know what that word means. I could look it up right now, but I'm really done right now. I don't care. Also, holy shit, it's September 11th. It's 9/11. It's 9/11. Happy 9/11, guys.
And when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president.
This is the most... Donald Trump talking about abortion is so retarded. I was going to say aggravating. I really don't, but it's so fucking dumb. He lies like crazy on the topic of abortion. And it's really only just to appease those Christian psychopaths that believe in God and want the Bible to be the fucking legal system. It's fucking, it's insane. Abortion should be outlawed. It's murder. I'm just going to let him say it. What he's about to say is so fucking stupid. And it's so stupid that the mediator, this lady, is going to call him out on it, and it's pretty funny.
president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of...
It's completely wrong. The 9th month? It's completely wrong, dude. And I can't, he's about to say something ridiculous.
West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before...
This is around the part where I stopped because I knew it was just too good of content to not react to it and upload.
He said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's what...
We will execute the baby. A baby was born on the 9th month and the doctor said, we will decide what to do with the baby. We will execute the baby. What the fuck are you talking about?
Why I did that, because...
This is some Alex Jones level talking points that are just so unbelievably dumb. Who the fuck is this for? What man is going to listen to that and believe it? It's crazy.
That predominates because they're radical. The Democrats...
Is someone seriously so like Trump brained that they can't like the whole point of being a voter and paying attention to is so you can be smart and you can be like, I agree with that, but I don't agree with that because that is just wrong. And he lied there. I don't know why Donald Trump is lying so much, but it's okay. I'm still going to vote for him. I like his other policies. That's a regular person. Somebody who listens to Trump and agrees with everything he says and thinks that people are aborting babies at 9 months and then after the baby's born, they murder it. What the fuck are you talking about?
are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born.
Please, Donald Trump, tell me, what are they doing? Are they fucking injecting the baby with I don't know, heroin? What are they doing after birth? That they put the baby to sleep. Actually, that's what they do to dogs. They put it to sleep. Are they doing that to babies? What's the name of the drug that they inject dogs with when they die? Is that what they're doing to babies after they've been born? Fresh newborn babies on the 9th month? What the fuck are you talking about?
Okay, and that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something...
It's completely illegal to murder a baby once it's been born. In the womb at like 8 months, it's probably illegal, I have no idea, but after it's come out of the womb, a doctor's holding it, you can't just fucking kill it. Some lady, some teenage girl had a baby, threw it in the garbage can at a hospital, and it died. She's in prison right now. This is... You can't do that.
For 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength...
I can hear Hassan doing that weird screech.
...of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exception...
That stupid fucking laugh screech he does. I'm not going to do it. That was probably annoying for you guys.
Exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it.
Rape and incest, the exception is acceptable by most Republicans, he says, which is not true. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm sure most Republicans probably are okay with circumstantial abortions, like rape and incest. I'm sure there was probably quite a few. Like if you went to a rally and you started asking that question, I'd say a lot of them would be like okay with the circumstantial stuff. But when it comes to the actual people that vote on these things, they don't give a fuck about circumstances.
on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to
That okay, this is the point where I stopped, bro. That is just so funny. Dude, listen to that. She just calls him out on this after he does this for fucking rant that's completely wrong.
To do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to it.
It's just pure gold right there. I seriously, dude, the mediators needed to call Donald Trump out on this because he said this exact same thing when he was debating. It was so, I really want to say the R word. It was so dumb. It was really, really dumb. It was so, I was shocked that nobody called him out on it. Biden didn't call him out on it. The mediators didn't call him out on it. I didn't even see most people on you know, on I don't want to say Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. I don't read Twitter that much, but I didn't see anybody talking about this. Donald Trump lying about people killing babies after they've been born.
To President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply.
I just find it crazy that like Republicans are so like about their freedoms. They absolutely love having freedom. They're like freedom of speech, freedom of guns, freedom of this and that. And then when it comes to Donald Trump and his policies and the things he wants to do, it's insane. You know, he wants to get rid of the freedom to abort a baby. You know what that means? There's no freedom of sex. You can't have sex casually and then, oh, if she gets pregnant, the condom fails, the birth control fails. Okay, that's fine. Let's just abort the thing. You know, it's not, that's not a freedom at that point. You're taking away freedom. It's insane. You can't call this country free when you want to take away freedoms such as that one that I think is really important. And what's another freedom they want to take away? I think I heard that they wanted to like bring the Bible into the school and make it a grade. You're going to force kids to learn the Bible. What happened to freedom of religion? That's literally in the Declaration of Independence or whatever the fuck you call it. I don't know. Dude, that's one of the main things is freedom of religion. And you want to take that away. We're taking away freedoms on the Republican side, and it's crazy that you know, usually that's the side that's so pro freedom and having choice.
Held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill
Look at him.
to put back in place.
Look at his face. He knows he's wrong here. He knows he's wrong. You know?
The protections of Roe v. Wade. As President of the United States, I will proudly.
She's cooking right now, bro. She's cooking. White guys for Harris. No, I really don't like her. I think she's a pretty shitty person. She's up there with Hillary. She's a fucking crook. But I will say she's cooking right now, bro. She's right.
Proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted.
In Project 2025, it is a national thing to ban abortion. So the Project 2025 thing she said is true. I don't know about personal plans because that's in his own mind. I don't know. But as far as Project 2025, which is made by people under him that work for him, get paid by him, it says that he's going to do that. So we'll see. I don't know.
Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else. And
Because I'm pretty sure odds are he gets elected. I think Donald Trump's going to win.
every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back.
I'd say one of the main reasons, I'm sure they're going to get to it in this debate, but one of the main reasons I'm kind of okay with Donald Trump winning is I know it's going to happen. I just have to come to accept it. And also, he's going to end the war in Ukraine. I know he doesn't have a plan for it, and he's just like, I'm going to end it. And then when someone's like, how are you going to end it? And he's just like, I can't say. It's like, okay. But he is going to end it, whether he has a plan or not. It's literally just, it comes down to being like, hey, Putin, it's time to stop. And as long as Donald Trump tells him it's time to stop, he'll do it. If it's Kamala Harris or Biden that says it's time to stop Putin, he can't do that because he'll look weak in his own country and, you know, all across the planet. Putin would look weak if he pulled out of Russia, or not Russia, Ukraine, after, you know, after Kamala Harris tells him to. So I definitely think Donald Trump has the ability to end the war in Ukraine, which I think needs to happen. It needs to happen. So, because if it keeps going, it's going to get to nuclear war. I'm just saying, dude, Ukraine is beating Russia's ass right now, and they will push all the way into Russia if Kamala Harris wins. They are going to get to Moscow. They are fucking, Ukraine is winning. So I'd say Donald Trump's the only hope of stopping that nuclear war. He might start another one, though, odds are. But yeah.
Back in the states, and I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with a 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again.
What is he talking about? Who the hell is her boss?
By the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with
It's not Biden. Biden's not on the beach.
this whole thing about this whole idea and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. in all fairness.
J.D. Vance is the most pathetic politician I've ever seen. He doubles back on everything he talks about. First, he hates Trump. Then, first, he's against, I forgot what it was, but like he wrote a book or something. I saw a short on YouTube. I think it was the Unsubscribed podcast, and they were talking about how like he wrote a book about how his mother struggled with addiction and how she stole painkillers from her hospital and was high on painkillers. And that's one of the main reason he wants to attack the border to stop drugs from coming into the country. It's like, dude, your mom stole prescription drugs from a hospital that were legally bought by the hospital. Like, those are legal drugs that she stole and did. She was addicted to legal drugs, and you want to close the border because they're bringing drugs over? That's just insane. That's the stupidest. I mean, sure, they're bringing drugs over the border for sure, but like, to say that that's the, I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it. Though. Go check out the Unsubscribed podcast. They talked about it. It was The way they explained it was pretty good. I'm doing a terrible job at explaining it, but I think JD Vance, just a fucking weasel, just an absolute weasel of a politician.
Fairness, JD, and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why.
I wonder if he agrees with her. I feel like he does, but I don't know. Like, I can't tell if he's trying to cook up a response in his head or if he agrees with her.
In every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Did he stop dyeing his hair yellow? Or was it never that yellow? No, his hair looks super gray and brown right now.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have to
you.
respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, they accused former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally
I wonder, do you guys, if there's anyone who's like Republican or whatever, do you feel like uncomfortable whenever a Democrat is in charge? Because I swear to God, every time a Democrat is in charge of the country, I feel like calm. Like, I feel like, okay, I don't have to worry about there being a nuclear war. Even though, like, if we got really close to a nuclear war when Russia was threatening everyone and the Ukrainian war started, which was under Biden. So isn't that weird? Like, I feel like more comfortable when Obama was in charge, I felt comfortable. When Biden was in charge, I felt pretty comfortable. Like, the country sure is fucked up, but like, I don't have to worry about World War III kicking off. Mostly because I feel like these Democrat people, or maybe just anyone who's not Donald Trump, doesn't escalate world politics to the point where it's like, oh yeah, fuck you, let's play chicken with nuclear warheads. You know what I mean? Like, Donald Trump is an escalator. When it comes to threats, he will threaten back. And it's not, I know a lot of Trump fans are like, yeah, dude, I love that about him. That's fucking stupid. It's so dumb. You shouldn't do that. You know, when you're a fucking karate black belt, you can be calm under pressure, dude. Like, when a country is like, fuck you, I'm gonna start war with you, you could be calm because you know you're gonna win. They know you're gonna win. Just stay calm. You know? What's the fucking Roosevelt thing? Like, speak softly, carry a big stick. Like, that is America. You gotta fucking be calm, but be prepared. That's the whole point. Donald Trump is like scream like a jackass and swing the stick around. It's like, what the fuck? You know? Act first, think later. That's Donald Trump.
Affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking
I
in
know
guns.
I'm starting to sound like a Kamala Harris fan, but I really don't like her. I think she's a terrible person.
Drugs and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run.
She doesn't engage in solutions, bro. She doesn't do solutions. There is no solutions in politics, only prolonging. We prolong to the point where it's no longer an issue.
On a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about
exhaustion and boredom. What are you talking about?
Your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who...
Anyone going to a Trump rally is either going there because Trump came to town and it's a small town and they're like, holy shit, we gotta go check this out. Or it's a poor Trump religious person who like thinks Donald Trump is God and they pray to him when they get pulled over. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's walking away from a Trump rally unless they're one of the casual people that showed up because Donald Trump came to town.
actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
My God.
That's because
I just realized this is... You got to remember, dude, there's teams behind these people, especially Kamala Harris. She has a team of people that, like, really study how to get underneath Donald Trump's skin and make him waste his 2 minutes of talking. They're asking him about a policy. He should be answering that question, but instead, she said that nobody goes to his rallies, which is an insult, and she was saying that he insults people, but she just fucking threw the first punch. But she says nobody goes to his rallies, so now he's gonna waste probably a whole minute saying, that's not true. Actually, a lot of people go to my rallies because a lot of people love my rallies and they love to hear me talk.
people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield.
Really just threw him off subject.
A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in.
What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Look at Kamala's face. That's my face right now. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're eating the dogs.
They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as not going to be Aurora to come into our three, just to go into another subject, what they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over.
He's talking about the border. He's talking about illegal immigrants coming into our country. They're going into Springfield, Illinois, and eating dogs and cats. This is the most... That's racist. That is racist. To just say that immigrants from Mexico come here to eat our animals. The fuck are you talking about? They're not barbaric animals. Like, he's describing immigrants from Mexico as if they're coyotes. Like, what the fuck?
Over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
Well, I live in Illinois. I'm not that close to Springfield, but I am in Illinois. And I'd say most towns in Illinois are similar. And I will say, not a single immigrant has eaten my animals.
They're eating the pets of the people that
I
live
actually know quite a few immigrants, people that are here illegally. Some of the greatest people I know. Some of the hardest working people I know.
there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like.
I wouldn't say all of them, though. I'd say most of the immigrants in New York right now are fucking degenerate, disgusting pieces of shit that beat up cops. It's like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Coming to America, great opportunity, and you're attacking police? What is wrong with you? But that's like the ones that Biden's letting in legally, you know? I think immigrants that come here illegally, um, like they jump the fence, they walk 30 miles, like those are the real good people, you know, the ones that really fight to get here, not the ones who are handed, uh, a free pass.
Like what I say, they want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us.
Again, why are the mediators, like the first thing that should have came out of his mouth is that immigrants are not eating cats and dogs. You're wrong there. Just like the lady said that babies are not being killed after birth. Why isn't he saying that? No immigrant is eating a dog or cat.
There have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant
If I didn't pause it.
community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
And maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying the
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
We'll
Talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election.
See, dude, that one insult about nobody going to his rally just threw him off, and he just wasted 2 minutes and made himself look like an idiot. Does it matter? No, he's still gonna win. But I'm just saying, that was the most stupid rant I've ever seen.
I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want...
Those are all shitty politicians who can be bought. Every politician, especially the ones that are like retired presidents, apparently can be bought. Why Obama is like doing these weird, we gotta vote for Biden. Biden is the future. I don't know, I'm giving Obama a southern accent, but like seeing Obama endorse Kamala Harris and Biden and Hillary, I really realized, like, okay, he's just being paid money. What the fuck is he doing?
Want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff.
That's why these fucking campaigns cost like hundreds of millions of dollars, because they're just paying off a bunch of other politicians and people to talk positive about them.
A four-star general has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former...
To say that, oh, I have 200 Republicans that endorse me. That's because you paid them. You paid them. Don't act like you didn't pay them. It's insane.
His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit.
I definitely believe that.
His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term.
It's probably because he fired those people.
And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people.
I knew it. Because I remember back when Donald Trump was president, he fired a lot of like defense and military people, like high up military people. He fired them and then replaced them with people who were completely unfit for the job. Like I think he fired somebody who I forgot what it was. It might have been on an oil rig or something. Someone in charge of the oil rigs or something. I don't know what it was. Or maybe it was either somebody who was in charge of oil rigs or somebody who was in charge of climate climate change shit, you know, like people who take care of the environment. I forgot what it was, but it was just such an extreme polar opposite. Like if it was somebody who was controlling the environment and making sure that we had a lot of trees being planted and a lot of like recycling uh operations going on, like he fired that person and then just replaced them who's with someone who's in charge of a bunch of oil rigs. You know what I mean? Like I completely forgot what it was because it was back in 2016. But he would fire people and then replace them with polar opposite people who were terrible for that job position. It was crazy how many people he fired.
Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them.
I did it terrible. I'm so sorry. I completely I don't know what I'm saying right now, but I think you get the point. What I'm trying to make here is he fired a lot of people qualified for the jobs and replaced them with people who were completely unqualified or would use that position poorly, is what I'm trying to say. And I rambled there for a second.
They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else, can they? But
I really wonder whose fault it was for that. I've heard so many different stories. Like, is it the general's fault? Is it Biden's fault? Is it Donald Trump's fault? Because apparently the pullout plan for that, like the pullout was actually Trump's plan and Biden just followed it. So it's either Trump's fault, it's Biden's fault, or the general's fault. Everyone's blaming each other, and I don't actually know whose fault that was.
they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
With meals for just $7.99, Panera
mad,
doesn't make you choose between a good deal.
We'll just wait for it to go by. Let's look at this juicy salad and let's just reflect on what Trump has said.
On immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah. It is
Door
much
to
higher
door.
because of them. They allowed criminals, many.
That sounds a little familiar. Remember when the British people were going door to door and no, they weren't going door to door. They were going in everyone's homes and putting a soldier in everyone's homes, and you had to treat that soldier respectfully. That's what happened back in Britain, I think, and that's what led to America leaving Britain or whatever. I forget. Or maybe it was in America. I forgot. But I do remember that in back during that time, back in like 1770, there were British soldiers living inside of the houses of the regular people. So they would tax the shit out of them, and then they'd put soldiers in their houses, and you had to take care of those soldiers and feed them and give them a room.
Millions of criminals. They allowed.
It's not even comparable to going door to door and checking for immigrants, but I don't know why I said that, but I feel like if I start a thought, I have to finish it.
Terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know the crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken...
Dude, I think in Venezuela, they just fucking murder people, dude. Any criminal, they kill. It's crazy. Sure, the crime rate significantly because every single crime is punishable by death, but I mean, at what cost? How many people are innocent and just getting murdered? You know what I mean?
Taking their criminals off the street, and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country.
I think in Project 2025 that it said that Donald Trump wants to abolish the FBI, which is surprisingly one of the happens in the movie Civil War. The president who gets killed, he abolishes the FBI. So, yep.
Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down. All over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall.
I don't think you can abolish the FBI because, like, the chain of how crime works is basically it goes like I don't know, it goes like local police, sheriff, detectives, and then it goes up to the FBI. All federal crimes, all like hardcore serial killer crimes go to the FBI.
Overall violent crime is actually coming down in this.
Migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me, the
President Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so
Yeah, how weird is it? I was talking about the FBI and then they start talking about the FBI. I didn't even know that was going to happen.
rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing.
What?
And let's be clear, with his next economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault,
Hang on a second.
coming
What?
from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's
Donald Trump did not sexually assault anybody. I think a lot of these charges are shit.
be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law.
He definitely tried to overthrow the government, Donald Trump. It may not have been a very good attempt, but he did.
And respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people.
Dude, Donald Trump right now is R. Kelly. I'm fighting for my motherfucking life. Because if he loses this election, bro, he's going to prison.
People address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for. Address what we must do to support our small businesses. Address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly,
She keeps talking about small businesses, dude. Fuck off. Small businesses are fine right now, dude. They're fine. They are fine. If they're not, there's no demand for them. It's literally supply and demand. If your business fails, there wasn't enough demand for it. Cutting any tax breaks or giving them money is not going to make their business work. It's all about demand. Okay? It's really that simple. Giving businesses money, especially a minuscule amount of money like $6,000 or whatever the fuck she's talking about, is not going to make their business work. Okay? If people do not buy their products, they do not buy their products. That's just how fucking that's just economics, dude. That's literally just capitalism. All right? Supply and demand. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. All right? This like whole thing that she's talking about, I'm going to save small businesses. No, you're not. You're not going to save them, and if you do, for what? For what? They're going to die anyway. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be, dude. You can't just save. Like, if I have a business, barbecue foot massage, and nobody buys that shit, and Kamala Harris keeps me in business for 4 more years, and as soon as she's gone, it closes, what was the point? That's just wasted money.
the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris.
I'm exhausted with her, dude. I'm fucking exhausted with the fact that she's like, oh, I'm going to change things. No, you're not. You're not going to change shit.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases.
Donald Trump's going to change things, just not for the better. That's really it. She's like, I'm going to change things, which is a lie. And Donald Trump's like, I'm going to change things, but it's going to be terrible. You know, what do you want? Change that's bad or no change at all?
was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed.
He hasn't said that shit directly, but he has kind of implied it a little bit. Now, I don't know what the first thing she said, I don't know what, I can't remember, but it was wrong. And then the second thing, he's gonna like weaponize the Justice Department to attack people that he doesn't like. He has heavily implied that he is gonna do that. I don't think he can, but we'll see. I don't know.
Disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
Also, hang on a second. Why is his ear fine? He got shot in the ear. It doesn't even look like there's a scar.
They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother. For the United States, and in fact, my values have not changed.
Your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that...
Right. She's right about that. Like, we should increase different ways of getting energy. I don't know about just focusing on fracking because there's only so much oil and stuff you can get from inside the US. There's only so much, you know what I mean? So this whole fracking thing that she's gonna make fracking better, you can't really do that, you know? That's like saying I'm gonna take these 3 marbles and I'm gonna make more marbles out of these 3 when there's only 3, and you can't make more. That's just not how that works. Bad example, bad analogy, my bad. Sorry.
Recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a
Here she goes on this fucking, I'm one of you, see, I'm one of you, vote for me.
Hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus
has nothing to do with politics, does it now?
then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based
She's just hitting every fucking subject so fast, rapid fire. Stay on topic, bitch. What the fuck was the question?
on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up. And
She's just yapping right now. She's just yapping so much. There was a few things I want to hit on what she was saying, but she just keeps back subject to subject, not clarifying on a single topic that I don't even know what to say.
and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader
He has barely name called anyone this entire run.
who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of all, I
response?
wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions.
He wasn't given $400 million, I guess. I don't know about that. Maybe he got $400 million in assets. Who fucking knows? He got $1 million in a loan or whatever the fuck from his father. $1 million cash, which equates to $8 million back then. So he got a small loan of $8 million and he started a business, which pretty hard to fail when you have a fucking $8 million investment. Where the fuck?
Billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk it into many. Builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies.
I don't know if she was pro defunding the police. I can definitely see it though, you know. She's a woman of very, 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 very light brown color. And so maybe she was like super George Floyded up, you know what I mean? She's like, defund the police, I can't breathe. Taking a knee, Wakanda forever. So who knows? She was probably super defund the police back in 2020.
She's like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please.
I can see it. I don't know.
Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of.
I can honestly, I can see all of this. I can see it.
Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a
Okay, I cannot see that. What the fuck are you talking about?
radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won
Starting to get exhausted listening to this, bro. Fucking Mr. Potato Head's gay. I'm done.
the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar.
It's a huge ass country. We have a lot of desert. Why not? I don't see how that's a problem.
But they take 400,
President
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment.
to.
Does
We're
she
out of time.
understand?
Who gives? What do you mean bad for the environment? It's a fucking desert. Nothing lives out there.
Thank you.
Liddy, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy. And
How great would it be if all roofs in America, every single roof of every house had solar panels on it? Not just for powering. There could be houses without using the solar panels. They'll just be there to get energy. How great would it be if everyone had a solar panel and they could even get paid for it? Like, let's say you have a solar panel on your house, and you're not using it, and you're just donating the energy to the government or the city to use on other people's houses and shit or projects, and they gave you money for it. Like, let's say every month you got $20 because you donated your solar panel energy to the city. How fucking great would that be? That'd be amazing. You know how much renewable energy that would be? I don't know what renewable energy really means, but just a different source of energy other than fossil fuels and fracking and windmills. Solar panels on every house in America. That'd be a great fucking, that's a good plan right there.
And the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the...
This is so true. Donald Trump, his little fucking storm the Capitol stunt that he did led to people getting murdered. Like, brutally murdered. Some Capitol got beaten to death. So, that is on him.
A moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol.
Well, actually, he never said directly to storm the Capitol, but he did say the election is rigged. Let's go teach him a lesson, which can be implied.
That day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an...
That is just factually wrong. I think maybe 2 Capitol guards were killed, or 1, but 1 Capitol guard I know for sure was brutally beaten to death. Nobody on the other side was killed other than the lady who was one of my supporters that got shot. That's just not true.
An out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people
She had it coming. I'm glad he shot her.
that have been treated so bad.
You break into the Capitol, bust a window, and you start climbing through it while a guy's pointing a gun at you, you deserve to be shot.
Badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed
Don't break into a fucking government building, okay?
to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because she knows.
Any other way around, you know? Can you imagine that if a bunch of Black Lives Matter protesters broke into a police station, busted one of the windows, and started climbing through it, and shot her in the chest? You know, everyone on the right, every Republican would be jerking off their guns, being like, "It was justified. That's a justified shooting." Like, dude, that bitch got shot in the chest after she broke into the Capitol and tried to climb through a window. Like, she had it coming.
Knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world.
Does Trump really believe all these lies that he says? That's my question. Does he really believe it? And if he does that make him? I think it does.
David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are
ask
those, David? When are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
I know what he's talking about. He's talking about Chaz, which is not a big portion of Seattle. That's a small, like 2 blocks, 1 block of Seattle that was taken. And yeah, that's, I don't know what he's talking about. A big chunk. It's a block. It's a single block that was taken.
Prosecuted.
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack
He did.
our nation's capital,
He did.
to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140
He did. Like, I don't care how much of a Trump fan you are. He did. He fucking incited a riot. He told everybody to go there. They did. They weren't just gonna stand outside the building. They were fucking gonna break in, you know? And then you got Tucker Carlson. They were allowed inside. It was a peaceful protest inside of the building. No, it wasn't, dude. They beat a guy to death.
law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate.
Right.
And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
I don't hold that against Trump, honestly. I don't think he was very informed of the situation, and he just said some shit trying to be neutral. I don't know. I really don't think Trump is racist, but sometimes he does things that are super fucking racist. I don't know. I don't think he's racist. I think he's just old. You know what I mean?
Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos.
Look at his face. Looks like he's mewing.
And to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
Did he say that?
Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go
I think he might have said that.
back. Let's chart a course for the future.
But he didn't literally mean there would be a bloodbath. I think he was just like saying, like, if he loses, that like a lot of people are going to be upset. It would be a bloodbath. Like, it just, you know, way of speech. I don't think it was even a dog whistle. I think he was just straight up like he was just, you know, just talking.
And not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a
It wouldn't be a bill. It'd be an executive order. But yeah, they could totally do that. They literally could do that. It'd be an executive order. It wouldn't last because it wouldn't be permanent like a bill. But yeah, they could totally do that. It would be done by tomorrow. An executive order.
bill that the border is closed.
Not a bill. Executive order.
All he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed. Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it.
Yeah, I remember when people said that he admitted that he lost or something like that, and then I watched the clip and I didn't see that at all. Like, he didn't admit that at all.
Back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75
People were putting words in his mouth, dude. He didn't admit he lost. He did not admit.
million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election.
I'm just gonna say really quick, I want to play Space Marine 2 so fucking bad right now, but my PC, I tried playing it, dude. It fucking barely getting 20 frames a second, dude. I'm struggling. This thing, it's my PC. I need to upgrade. I need an upgrade, which sucks. So anyone watching who wants to give me money, go over to Krusty House, become a member. All right, go over to Krusty House on YouTube, become a member, and I'm gonna get a better PC
People should never
so I
be
can play Space Marine too.
thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
And said
They said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly,
That reaction he just did. Look at him when he does it.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly, he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as vice president of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. Wow. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way.
Honestly, I think they were afraid because he was just so fucking unpredictable. You know? Fire and fury. Like, North Korea was threatening America with nukes. Trump was like, do it. It's like, why are you saying that?
He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended...
Seriously, thank God Trump was not in office when this Ukraine thing kicked off, because when Putin was threatening nuclear war, it was a serious threat. And the best way to answer these serious threats is to not answer them. Just don't answer. Okay? It's how it works, dude. It's if you don't answer, it's not real. You know what I mean? We basically just left Russia on delivered. You know what I mean? Like, we just did not answer or even acknowledge the fact that they threatened us with nuclear war. You know what I mean? If Trump was in office, he would have been like, fire and fury, do it, bitch, you won't, Putin. We call him Crybaby Putin. That's what we call him. And he would be insulting Russia constantly. And he would be threatening them with nuclear war. And it would be terrible. It would be terrible. Yeah.
Did the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look.
The pipeline in Europe that connects to Russia was, I think it was like a mutually agreed thing. Like, I think Europe wanted that. Biden was not in charge of that happening.
Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time
I
is
think
up.
we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week,
You know how many psychotic fucking people were pro-Palestine? It's insane. It seemed like everyone with a mental illness was pro-Palestine.
Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you?
You know that bitch that was inside of a truck? Like, just some random guy's truck. He's like, get out of my truck. Because he's trying to do his job. He's like, get out of my truck. And she's like, free Palestine. Free Palestine. She's like wearing a dress with a puffer jacket, no shoes, socks. Like, she's just barefoot. And she's screaming free Palestine in some guy's truck. She looks like she just got out of prom. And she's like fucking screaming free Palestine in some guy's truck. And he just rips her out and throws her onto the street. That's what I think of when I think of people who are pro-Palestine.
You do it.
With meals for just $7.99, Panera doesn't make you choose.
Speaking of Palestine and all that, I think, I don't know. Before I was super pro-Israel, I was super upset with what happened. But as I've seen
How we got here. On
all
October
these children get killed by these Israelis, these IDF people. Like, there's so many dead kids being killed over there, and it's sad that I'm no longer pro-Israel. I'm definitely not pro-Hamas, but I don't know. There really isn't a solution. I think picking a single side is wrong, and we need to create a third side. You know what I mean? We can't just pick black and white. You know what I mean? Like, we can't just pick a single side. It has to be. We have to be, as Americans, the mediator of this conflict. You know what I mean? We need to be better than both of them, and we need to fix it. That's what I think. Can't just pick a side.
7,
They're both
Hamas,
wrong.
a terrorist
Both sides are wrong. You know what I mean?
organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped.
That's what really fucking made me angry, is they just attacked a concert of random people from different countries, murdered them, paraded their bodies through. This girl had the back of her head, there was a hole in it. She wasn't even from Israel, and they beat her to death. She's in the back of a truck, half naked. There's a hole in the back of her head, and some fucking jackass, some goat fucker, spits on her body as they parade her body through the streets as people cheer. That is what made me just immediately go, fuck that country, level it to the ground. But at the time, I wasn't thinking about all those civilians and all those children that live there. You know, because people would be like, oh, there's children there. And I'd be like, fuck them. I don't care, dude. Those are terrible people. And you know, that's why I was like Howard Stern after 9/11, just talking about how we should nuke the Middle East, because I was angry. Howard Stern was angry at the time. It's very easy to be quick to saying that we should murder people that I'm never going to see those people. So it's easy for me to be like, yeah, murder all of them. But like, when you really see the damage that has been done there, it's wrong to just immediately jump to like, oh, we should level the whole city. It's wrong to say that. It's wrong to think that. You know, we got to be better than that as people. We need to have compassion. That's what I think.
And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that This war must
Yep.
end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around.
The hostages are dead. If they're still there, they're fucking dead. Anyway, that's not the problem. The hostages is not the problem. The ceasefire is not the problem. The problem is the colonization of the West Bank. Israel is slowly stealing land from Palestine. If you look at a map and it's like its progression of how much land Israel is owning and stealing, it's straight up colonization. They isolate one group of the people. They literally divide and conquer. They divided Israel in the middle. That's where Israel is. Not Israel. They divided Palestine. Palestine is on the left and it's on the right. And they're slowly stealing land from the right side of Palestine as they circle around the left side of Palestine. So they're literally just stealing land while they're holding one side back. It's pretty messed up. It's evil, I think. They're dividing and conquering. They're colonizing Palestine. So it's very understandable why Palestinians are so upset at Israel. You know what I mean? Like, could you imagine if Mexico was slowly stealing land from America? Like, we would not stand for that shit. We would attack them. Like, seriously, could you imagine if Mexico was stealing land from Texas very slowly and illegally? We would be very upset. So, I think that needs to stop immediately. And then a ceasefire. Well, no, ceasefire and then stop the colonization.
On the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat.
I don't think they're going to talk about the colonization
That Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you...
That's not their issue. The issue they have is the fucking land that's being stolen in the West Bank.
negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the...
Also, Hamas, they just want to kill all of Israel and destroy their whole country. So there is no doing a deal with Hamas. But for the Palestinian people in the West Bank, they are being completely fucked over. And that needs to be fixed.
Hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza.
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one.
That's stupid. No country would fall in 2 years.
She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arabs.
It's just not possible. If Ukraine doesn't fall to Russia in 2 years, there's not a single fucking country in this planet that would fall in 2 years.
Population, because
unless it was America attacking, then they would fall. But like any other country,
the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened.
What the fuck is he talking about? They're asking for a solution on a problem, and he's just fucking speculating.
Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran...
He's not even answering the question.
...had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were...
Nowhere in your incoherent rambling would there even be a resemblance of an answer. You know that scene from Bill.
Broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done.
I definitely believe that. I believe that, and I'm so for that. I really am. The amount of, it's so evil. The shit is happening in Ukraine is so fucking evil. The drone warfare is the most disgusting, horrifying thing I have ever seen. The longer that war goes on, the fucking worse it is for the rest of the planet, dude. Drone warfare is this newly found idea that is so scary. And it was born from this war in Ukraine. Like, it's terrifying. Drone warfare is it needs to stop.
Before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself.
That is pretty fucking true. He's got terrible policies for foreign countries. Like, I'd say the only good thing Trump will probably do in his term when he wins, because he will win, I'd say the only good thing he's probably going to do when he wins is stop the war in Ukraine. That's the only good thing he's going to do. Everything else, I can imagine, is going to be terrible.
It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do it.
These tariffs that he's got planned are going to fuck this country and its people.
Whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known.
Wait, what?
That these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And
that is so true. You can win Trump over with flattery so easily.
That is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with.
Did he? I don't think he said that. I'm trying to remember. What did he? Ah, fuck. I remember I think Putin was Trump, right? I forgot.
Is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They are grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia.
Is it over?
I just love to have her back more than anything in the world.
What the fuck is that? Nope, it's not over. God damn it. When does this end, dude? When is it over? Oh my god. Oh my god, it never ends. Fuck me. 40 more minutes of this.
For $250 billion or more, because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you, Putin would be sitting in Moscow and he wouldn't have lost $300 billion. They're into 100 to 100.
Sold out in America. You're watching live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for $250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe, like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell, but after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right,
negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts.
Because we have
Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get...
Just to clarify the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest...
Okay, so you can clearly see how this guy right here, he doesn't give a fuck about war. He probably hasn't even seen some of the things that you can find on the internet about people who die in this war. There's some brutal fucking deaths. I'll just say it right now. I have seen some people die in this war, and it is fucking brutal. Mostly just the drone videos, these FPV drone videos. It's fucking horrifying. The people that beg for their life, and then a fucking FPV drone just flies straight into them and blows them into fucking parts. It's horrifying. It's terrible. And it needs to stop immediately. It needs to end. So this guy going like, "Oh, are you sure? Are you sure about that, Donald Trump? I think Ukraine needs to win this." There is no winning, dude. There's no fucking winning. It needs to just end right now. All right.
Interest to get this war finished and just get it.
If he was the one in the trench right now, getting shot at and having a fucking drone fly over his head, dropping grenades, I'm sure he would be begging for the war to end immediately. Fuck about a winner. You know what I mean? It's so easy to talk about war and people dying, but to actually see it and experience it is a completely different thing, and it needs to stop. Okay? You'd be singing a completely different song if it was you in those shoes.
It done. Right, negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to
Totally with Trump on this one.
Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for
Any combat veteran would agree with that.
Ukraine in this moment, but also as commander-in-chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here.
He would. He would, and he should.
I actually met with Zelensky a few days.
I'm not saying that we should leave Ukraine out to die, but it needs to stop. And I feel like Trump is the best way to get that done. But, I am a little worried that he will just pull out. Because if he does just pull out and Ukraine doesn't surrender, a lot more people are going to die than if it just continues. You know what I mean? Like if we pull out the wrong way, more people will die.
Days before Russia invaded.
And I don't want that. The whole reason I want Trump to win and end the war is because I want people to not die. So if he fucks this up, I'm gonna be very angry.
Tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of...
This is a topic that I think I got to address, is Donald Trump's relationship with NATO and how he just wants to fuck it up so bad. So basically, Trump is complaining about how America is the big money, the breadwinner of NATO, which, so America spends the most money on NATO compared to all the other people inside of NATO, all the other countries inside of NATO combined, basically. America spends the most money. But to be fair, we are in charge of NATO. NATO is our thing. We own it. It's our alliance. So it makes sense that we spend the most money on it. But Trump is under the idea that we should not be paying that much money and the other countries should come together and start being the breadwinner of NATO, which the other countries do kind of agree with that. They're like, yeah, we do need to start spending more money on military budgets and stuff. But by doing that, we're just going to isolate ourselves from our allies, which is terrible, because the only reason America has any form of influence over the entire world is because we have so many allies in Europe and other countries, Allies are the most important thing to a country and its power. So I think Trump's gonna fuck us over with the NATO. He has fucked us over with NATO a little bit, but he's definitely planning on doing some crazy shit with NATO. I don't know. I'm getting very exhausted by talking about this.
Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch?
Vice President.
He would. He's a KGB agent, dude. He's a fucking liar. He does not care about people. He's a murderer. He kills people. Putin is a killer. And he does not give a fuck about America. So it's wild that Donald Trump thinks he's his friend. It's crazy.
President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you.
Dude, myself could make Trump like me. It really does not take a lot to win Trump over. Just compliment him a bunch of times, tell him he's super, and he'll love you. It's fucking stupid how easy it is to get in Trump's head and have him in your pocket. So to have someone that gullible and manipulated as the president is wild. I gotta answer a phone. I don't even know where I was with that. Where was I? That phone call kind of threw me off. I don't know where I was. I don't know what I was talking about.
On Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier. And please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use it.
I was talking about how easy Trump is to manipulate and how gullible he is and how dumb he is. He is. He really, all you have to do is compliment him, tell him he's smart and a great businessman, and automatically he'll love you.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something.
It is wild that Trump thinks Putin is his friend. He really does think that.
Something you said earlier. And please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening.
So wait, did Trump just admit that he would have let Putin take... Oh, I know. He said Putin would be sitting in Moscow. What is he talking about?
But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was...
They did say some pretty stupid shit. I remember like when Putin was threatening or whatever, and the only response they had was "please don't." It was like literally that. It was just that. It was like don't. Like, it was like a one-word response. Don't.
The emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president.
Is Biden the worst president? Possibly. Mostly because his entire presidency, he was conscious, basically. Like, he was not able to move or think at all for himself. And he fell over quite a bit. He might be the worst president. I don't know. But as far as like policies go, he might not be the worst. But as a president, like a person, definitely the worst.
President in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan.
She's cooking, bro. She's got a point there. She's cooking, dude.
It came up in the first hour of this debate. I wanted to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO.
We are not being ripped off. We're not being ripped off, dude. America, the value. Okay, another thing about that I didn't mention before is the biggest thing America has, the most important thing America has. It's not gas, it's not oil, it's the value of the US dollar. The value of USD is the most important thing in the world. The only way USD remains the most valuable currency in the world, which it's declining rapidly because of all this conflict and stuff that's happening. It will decline even more if Donald Trump pushes our allies away, which he's planning on doing. It's crazy. Like, the value of USD comes from allies. The only way the US dollar remains powerful is if it's valuable to every European country that we're allied with NATO. NATO is not just a military alliance, it is also an economic alliance. So Donald Trump pushing our allies away with trying to win Putin over as a friend is so stupid, because it'll just cripple the economy on top of fucking up our military alliance. So what Trump is talking about doing with NATO is terrible. It's a terrible idea. It's stupid. And he really is being fucked over by Putin.
NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today,
it was an important war, I think, because it kept the conflict over in a different... I mean, it had its value. America, before the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, was being attacked constantly by terrorists. There was a lot of huge bombings going on. Like, I know a lot of people only remember 9/11, but like if you do some research in history, I think most people know this if you're older or if you've taken some classes in high school and remembered them. But there was like an Oklahoma bombing that blew up like half a fucking building in a kindergarten. Like, there was a lot of bombings going on in the name of these terrorist groups. So the war in Afghanistan that kept all that conflict on the other side of the planet was very valuable. So let's not just say that we were wasting money and lives on that conflict. Sure, it was about oil, but it was also about keeping the terrorists over in their side of the world and not over here. So it had its value. That's all I'm going to say. It was not a pointless war. Vietnam, that was a pointless war. Afghanistan was not.
There is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, no, get this. And the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to...
She's completely going off topic. The question was, does she feel responsible for the deaths that happened because of the out that happened under her administration? And she completely just changed the subject and moved on to Donald Trump inviting the Taliban over to Camp David to talk. Which, not a wild thing. Who gives a fuck if he talked to them?
To the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind. And we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do.
I will say, either way, there was a possibility of casualties for sure. Pulling out or pulling out slowly, people were gonna die most likely. So this whole like, oh, the fact that we pulled out so fast led to all these people dying, I don't really think that's true. I think the bigger problem is that we left all that important equipment behind. That's the real problem, I think. For sure. If we didn't pull out so fast, we wouldn't have left anything for them to keep or use. And I think that was the most important part, you know? Because if we pulled out slowly, odds are they were going to fucking attack us on our way out. For instead of a few days or 1 month, it would have been stretched out to what, like 6 months? Constant attacks as we pull out. It would be like every single zone we pull out of, the military that we left behind, like the Taliban, not the Taliban, the what are they called, the AMA or whatever the fuck, the Afghan forces or whatever the fuck, the ones that we trained to replace the US soldiers, they would have they would have surrendered immediately as soon as we pull out. So each zone we pull out of would have been taken over immediately, and it would have still just led to a bunch of Americans getting killed. But this way, we wouldn't have left $80 billion worth of supplies and gear for the Taliban to pick up and use. So I think that was the most important thing. There was no avoiding the death, and I think that doesn't really get addressed.
Do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something.
It's true. I don't think he does care, but it is her fucking running. Like, she's running off of the fact, like, I'm black, everybody. I'm black. Like, that's her thing. She's trying to get the black vote. She's trying to get the poor people vote by saying she was grown up middle class. She's just trying to get votes by lying and using the same manipulation tactics that every single fucking politician uses to get votes. It's pathetic and it's stupid, and people are sick of it, and he's just calling it out. That's what I think. So, I don't respect it. She is fucking white. She's white. Look at her. Look at her face, dude. She cannot say the N-word in Compton and get away with it. Let's just be honest, dude. Look at her. She is a white woman.
Couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then
At what point can you no longer claim to be black? Look at her fucking face.
I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's
Like,
up
I'm darker than her, dude. I'm darker than her. Donald Trump has more of a tan than she does.
to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone.
Really pay attention to her skin tone, and let's look at the mediator.
Thoughts on this?
This guy is the same color as her. He's very white.
I think it's,
She's very white.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a
It's just ridiculous that she's claiming to be a black woman.
tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor.
All right, you know, I think I've heard enough of this. I'm pretty much done. I don't think I need to hear anymore. There might be a little bit more stupid shit. I think there's like 10 minutes left. I'm fucking fried right now. I don't want to hear any more of this bullshit.